In this video, we'll look at default methods in interfaces. Java 8 introduced the concept of default methods in interfaces. A default method is a method that has a default implementation in the interface. This means that the method does have a body, and instead of the semicolon, it has the curly braces with the implementation in between. Here's the syntax for a default method in an interface. You can see it uses the keyword default to indicate the method will have a body. Without this keyword, the code won't compile. Classes that implement the interface do not need to provide a body for the default method, but they can override it if they choose to do so. This was added so that we can go ahead and add a method to an interface without breaking the code. If we would add a regular interface method, so one without a body, we would need to implement this method in all the classes that implement the interface. And this could be a lot of work. We don't need to do this with the default method, since it has a default implementation already. We only need to override it when we have to. Here's an example of a class that implements an interface with a default method. Here, the class myClass implements the method called myMethod. But it does not provide a body for the default method. There's a body already, so it doesn't need to. However, it's allowed to override it. This works just like another override. We don't use the keyword default in the class that overrides it, but we must use the keyword public, since it's implicitly public in the interface. Let's add a default method eat, prey, to our predator interface in IntelliJ. So I'm going to go ahead and say default. It's not going to return anything. It's called eat, and it's going to be eating something of type prey. So that's going to be the inputs. And then in here, I'm not going to do anything interesting. I'm just going to say eating. And let's specify the class of the prey. So here's how to add a default method. Default methods are methods in an interface with a body, and we can create them by using the keyword default. We can override them in the implementing class if we want to, but we don't need to. Default methods are not the only option we're having for a method with a body in an interface. In the next video, we'll take a closer look at static and private methods in interfaces.